There's no need to be intimidated by making a soufflé. It only has 3 components. You just need to know how to put them together. Today we're going to make chocolate soufflés, just chocolate soufflés for 2 people. Very romantic. I'm going to start by melting butter and chocolate together. I'm using a double boiler, which is simply a metal bowl over some steaming water. Once that water's come to a boil, you can turn it off and just use the residual heat to melt the butter and chocolate together. Now, as with any recipe, always use the best ingredients if you want the best results. So I'm using a really nice grade bittersweet chocolate here. Let's get our ramekins ready. These are 6-ounce ramekins. We're going to butter and sugar them. So that means taking the wrapper from your stick of butter, buttering the inside of the ramekin, and then dust it with some sugar. Pour sugar inside, move it around the outside of the ramekin, letting any excess sugar fall back into the bowl. What this is going to do for you is give your soufflé a bit of a sugary, chewy crust on the outside. Let's give our chocolate and butter a stir to help it melt, and then we'll move on to separating our eggs. Now, separating the eggs is the most important step of making a soufflé. We're going to whip the egg whites and incorporate all that air into the egg whites. If there is the trace of yolk in the whites, they will not whip up. And let the whites fall into the bowl and put the egg yolks in a bigger bowl. Once we've got our egg whites in a bowl, leave those aside. Go ahead with your egg yolks, and we're going to beat these up along with some sugar, some vanilla extract, and then we're going to transfer our cooled butter and chocolate into that mix. Give your melted chocolate with butter a little time to cool before you add it to the eggs. Make sure it's perfectly smooth and melted, however, and then drizzle it into the eggs as you beat the eggs slowly so that we don't heat the eggs too much. Once your chocolate and everything has been incorporated nicely, it's time to stir in some flour. And I say stir in the flour because we don't want to beat it in, because we just want it incorporated. We don't want to mix it hard. So take that spatula and just fold that flour into the chocolate mixture. The flour is going to help us keep the soufflé risen for longer. I'm going to use that electric mixer to beat the egg whites. I'm not using the same whisk that I used to beat the egg yolks because it's so important not to get any fat at all into the egg whites. So I'm going to beat these up until I can see hard peaks. I'll show you what that looks like. This is what egg whites whipped to stiff peak look like. It looks like a little chocolate kiss there when you lift that mixer out of the egg whites. That's good enough. Now, the last tiny step, and this is completely optional, and if you have cream of tartar in your home already, take a little pinch of cream of tartar and sprinkle that in the egg whites. What that will do is help those egg whites hold the air for longer, allowing your soufflé to stay in its risen state for longer. Now, if you're going to use your oven, preheat your oven to 400 degrees before you mix these ingredients together. If you're using an air fryer, it's only going to take a couple minutes. We're going to preheat the air fryer to 330 degrees. Now, when it comes to folding your egg whites into your flavorful base, you're going to do it in 2 or 3 stages. Take a small amount of these egg whites first of all and put them into the base. This is going to lighten the base and make it easier to incorporate more egg whites into it. So by doing this, you'll see that your flavorful base has lightened in color. It's time to add some more egg whites. Now comes the time when you want to be a little more careful. So fold the egg whites. That means incorporate those egg whites into that base just by sort of turning the base over on top of the egg whites. When almost all the streaks of white have disappeared, add your remaining egg whites and fold them in gently. Okay, as soon as you see no more egg whites in the base, it's time to transfer this to the ramekins. Filling it almost all the way to the top there. Okay, perfectly done. Now, just one tiny little tip. Take the edge of your thumb and just run it around the side of the ramekin here, just slightly into that batter. That gives a little bit of a separation between the batter and the edge of the ramekin and allows that soufflé to rise more easily. There's our air fryer, just finished preheating. Let's get these in. We're going to set it for 330 degrees, 14 minutes. You're not going to open the doors of either oven or air fryer while the soufflé is baking. You want that to have a constant hot air temperature. Now here's the thing about soufflés. They rise because that air inside the egg whites is going to expand when it gets hot. When it comes out of the oven, that air is going to cool and the souffle is going to fall. All souffles fall. It does not mean that you have failed as a souffle maker. Remember, everybody waits for a souffle because a souffle waits for no one. And there it is. Let's take a look. Beautiful, beautiful souffles. Now, getting them out of the air fryer can be a little bit tricky. Grab yourself a set of silicone tongs and transfer these to a plate. Look how gorgeous. Hopefully you and your romantic partner are waiting for these souffles because they're going to fall momentarily. So quickly dust with a little powdered sugar. Get these to the table where you're seated and ready, add a little heavy cream, and you're good to go. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more of the basics, click right over here. If you'd like to see everything I used in this recipe, click over here. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for more basics, put them right down in the comments section below.